Hi, everybody. It's Peter Schiff. It is Saturday, June 1st, 2013. I think the most important news of the week came out late Friday. In fact, I didn't even notice it myself until this morning. That's how late it came out. But the Federal Reserve posted on its website the minutes of the most recent meetings of the Federal Advisory Council. And they meet, I think, 4 times a year. It's a collection of 12 bankers, and they work with and help advise the Fed on monetary policy. And it's unbelievable what was actually said in these minutes. And I'm gonna read you some of the highlights or the lowlights. I've condensed it down so I don't have to spend too much time reading. But I think they tried their best to sugarcoat the message that they were sending. But when you read between the lines, and it doesn't take much to do that, basically what it boils down to is they're admitting that the Fed's monetary policy has not been effective. It hasn't produced legitimate economic growth. All it's done is inflate asset bubbles that have made us feel good, that have made us borrow too much money and spend too much money, but the Fed has completely distorted the market, and that when the QE stops, it's going to be a complete disaster. That's basically what they said. They said, hey, when the party's going to end and it ain't going to be fun, there's going to be hell to pay for what the Fed has done. That's basically what they said. But let me read to you what they did say, and you can draw your own conclusions. And again, I'm not reading every word. I'm just taking the important parts out. You can get out of what they said. You can see the entire minutes. They're up on the internet. I originally even found out about it up on the Zero Hedge website. But let me start reading. Okay, this is from the minutes of the meeting that took place on May 17th, but they were just put up on the Fed's website on Friday. Here's what they said. Quote, this is all quotes. The aggressive rate of asset purchases has helped maintain low short-term and mortgage interest rates and liquidity in the markets, obviously. This, in turn, has increased prices of debt and equity securities, consumer confidence in spending, and confidence in the financial markets. So in other words, they're admitting that the Fed policy has inflated asset prices and that those higher asset prices has instilled confidence in the markets and in consumers. Now, they go on to say this, quote, however, the effectiveness of the policies in producing healthy economic and employment growth is not clear. Economic growth has remained sluggish and uneven. While some believe monetary policy may not be accommodative enough, others believe that consistent injections of new reserves have not returned the economy to the vibrant, upbeat model it used to be, and that current monetary policy is ineffective. This is coming from the official Federal Advisory Council. These are bankers. These are not gloom and doomers like Peter Schiff. These are mainstream guys who are finally acknowledging what I've been saying for years. Now, let me continue. Quote, this is some good stuff here. There are potential risks associated with current policy. Boy, that's an understatement. Now, I'm going to get back to the quote. Quote, the Fed's securities purchases have reduced mortgage yields and, to a lesser extent, treasury yields. Current low bond yields are disruptive. They may encourage unsophisticated investors to take on undue risks to achieve better returns. You think? I mean, come on, that's what's going on. Now, here's more of this. Quote, MBS purchases account for over 70% of gross issuance, causing price distortions and volatility in the MBS market. That's mortgage-backed securities. Many are concerned about the Fed's significant presence in the market. There is also concern about the possibility of a breakout of inflation. Well, duh. But, they're actually admitting it. People are concerned about inflation. What do you know? Now, here's some more of this. Quote, further, current policy has created systemic financial risks and potential structural problems for banks. Systemic risks, structural problems? Yes, that's exactly what I've been saying. Everybody in the mainstream has been ignoring that reality. Now, finally, somebody has the guts to say it in a position, I guess, of some credibility. Here's more. Net interest margins are very compressed, encouraging banks to take on more risk. Here, the bankers themselves are admitting that the low interest rate policy of the Fed is encouraging the banks to take on more risks than they otherwise would take in a free market without this interference. Now, it actually gets better. Listen to this. All right. Remember, this is all word for word quote. I'm not paraphrasing anything. This is exactly what was said. I'm just leaving some stuff out for the sake of brevity. Okay, here, quote. The Fed's aggressive purchases of 15-year and 30-year MBSs have depressed yields. Banks seeking additional yield have to run to investment options with longer durations, lower liquidity, and or higher credit risk. Finally, the regressive nature of the artificially compressed savings yields creates pent-up demand within bank deposit portfolios. These deposits may be at risk once yields begin to rise and competitive pressures increase. There they said it. Our bank deposits will be at risk when interest rates rise. What do you know about that? What about the FDIC? The deposits are at risk, just like the deposits were in Cyprus. Let me continue here. This is probably the best of it all. This is where they bring it home. Uncertainty exists about how markets will reestablish normal valuations when the Fed withdraws from the market. Now, that's an admission that valuations are inflated because of the Fed. And they're worried about how valuations will return to normal, meaning prices go down when the Fed removes their supports. Let me continue this quote. It will likely be difficult to unwind policy accommodation. Wait a minute. I thought it was supposed to be a piece of cake, right? The Fed said they had the tools. Here, their own advisors are saying it's going to be difficult. And again, that is a massive understatement. It's not going to be difficult. It's going to be impossible. And the end of monetary easing may be painful for consumers and businesses. Let me repeat that. The end of monetary easing may be painful for consumers and businesses. It won't just be painful, it will be excruciating. And not just consumers and businesses, they left out the government and taxpayers. I guess taxpayers and consumers, maybe they're the same thing, although not necessarily, because there are a lot of consumers who don't pay taxes. But I thought that we're having a recovery when the Fed removes the accommodation. But if the removal of the accommodation will be painful, doesn't that mean that we're back in recession? Because if the economy were still growing, that wouldn't be painful. The pain only comes as we relapse into recession. So to me, this is an admission that the phony recovery will end when the stimulus ends, and we'll be right back in the pain of a recession. Here's the final sentence. Given the Fed's balance sheet increase of approximately $2.5 trillion since 2008, the Fed may now be perceived as integral to the housing financial system, to the housing finance system. It's more than just integral. The Fed is the housing finance system. The government guarantees all the mortgages, and the Fed buys them. See, this is worse than what happened during the housing bubble that burst in 2008. Yes, you had government guaranteeing the mortgages, but they were still owned privately. Now, not only does the government guarantee even more of the mortgages than they did then, but the government actually owns all of the mortgages. Now, I think this is some very startling information to come from a mainstream source. Now, I mean, none of it surprises me. I mean, I've been saying this for years, and the mainstream has ignored my voice and voices similar because they say we're kooks, we're nuts, we're stop clocks, stuff like that. But how are they going to say that about this committee, the Federal Reserve Advisory Committee? These are mainstream bankers finally coming to the same conclusion. Now, I don't think they're as dire in their warnings because I think they're deliberately sugarcoating this. But the fact that they're pointing this out, to me, shows that they know how screwed up the situation is, the box that the Fed is really in, and how badly this is going to end. Now, I'm not sure exactly when this got up on the Fed website and whether it was partially responsible for that sharp sell-off going into the close. We'll find out because the information is now out there. It's being reported. We'll see how the Asian markets react to it on Sunday night. I mean, maybe this could be the equivalent of the irrational exuberance comments of Alan Greenspan back in, 1996, 97 or something. Now, of course, the market sold off originally. There was a one-day sell-off, and then, of course, the markets ignored the chairman and went up anyway. I think that what these minutes reveal is far more startling and potentially disruptive than the comments that Alan Greenspan made about irrational exuberance, because I think this shows that the exuberance is far more irrational now than it ever was back then. So we'll see Sunday night if there's any reaction to this in the currency markets, in the precious metals markets, in the stock markets. But I think that it has the potential to be a big wake-up call. Maybe it could be a emperor has no clothes type moment.